you're an early stage SaaS founder, this video is for you to help you get more leads and solve some problems that are keeping you from doing so. So if you're seed stage to about Series A, maybe Series B, keep on watching. And I'm going to go over the 5 problems that keep SaaS companies from getting more leads. So if you solve these and systematically go through these 5 bottlenecks, you'll be able to start getting more inbound leads from LinkedIn, have faster sales cycles, and better cold outbound reply rates in about the next 90 days, next quarter. So moving forward, why should you even trust me on stuff like this? So over the past 14 months, I've helped about 30 SaaS founders and CEOs launch founder-led content. Since we've launched Compound, which is my agency where we do this thing, not to plug or anything this early on, but just giving you some context there. Prior to that, I was head of social at Triple Whale, where I helped them launch and scale their social media presence and really build a cult-like following of their ICP. And then at Compound, we ship about 150 to 200 plus content assets per week across our clients. So we have a good amount of visibility into what's working, what's not, what used to work that doesn't now, and vice versa. So we have a lot of data and visibility into what's working in this whole like LinkedIn founder-led content thing. And then I've used founder-led content myself to keep our business at or near capacity. We have a wait list at this point. Again, not to plug, but I want to impart upon you that this content stuff does work. So these problems I'm going to run you through are things that come from my client conversations, my sales calls, even my own experience as I've tried to troubleshoot and make this founder-led content thing work over the years. So just want to give you some context as to why you should trust me on this. Now, again, in that time, I've identified 5 common problems that keep most of these companies from winning with content on LinkedIn and other platforms. I'm going to call these the Compound Core 5, mainly because naming things makes it easier for it to stick in your mind, and it's kind of catchy. So Compound Core 5, the 5 problems that keep SaaS companies from getting more leads with content. Solve these and you'll get more high quality leads. Really as simple as that. So the first problem here is that nobody knows who you are. And this really isn't rocket science. A lot of the SaaS founders I talk to see their competitors winning on LinkedIn. Maybe their investors want them to post more on LinkedIn and other social platforms and drive traffic from there, but they just don't have an audience of their own. And the reason why you should care about this, again, pretty straightforward. I'm not going to sit here and try to convince you for 5 minutes straight on this. Really, if you're not getting any traffic, you're not getting any leads. You can build the best product in the world, but if you have no distribution, which in today's day and age is going to be through social platforms like LinkedIn and maybe X, I'll get into that in a second, you're going to have a tough time. So as far as how you'd solve problem number 1, increase your posting volume. And there are 2 immediate actions I want you to start taking to solve for this or to start solving for this. So going away from this video, here are 2 things immediately that you can do. 1, identify the best platform to start posting on. 2, start posting more. Every single sales conversation I have with founders, and even once they're in and onboarded, I have to constantly remind SaaS founders of this reality. No one knows who you are, like we just talked about. And if you're only posting about 1 time per week, or I've had founders say, hey, I want to test out posting on LinkedIn or on social 2 times per month. That's not nearly enough frequency. 1, just to get in front of people so they know who you are. Again, you're early stage, so nobody really knows who you are at this point. You're not Brian Chesky. You're not Sam Altman. You got to accept that reality and get in front of your ICP more often. You can't go dark for months at a time or even weeks at a time. And then the other part to that is if you're not posting often, you're not getting as many data points as you could on what works and what doesn't. So increasing posting volume. Now, the answer to part number 1 here on identifying the best platform, the best platform for SaaS founders to get leads in 2024 is LinkedIn. Hands down, your ICP is there and they're in the correct mental state to be marketed to. Yes, your ICP is on X or Twitter. We have clients on there as well. I wouldn't start there. So if you're starting from 0 or you're trying to pick a platform to focus on, I would do LinkedIn first and then maybe expand to X. We have a few clients who have done that. But your ICP is for sure, or so ideal customer profiles for sure on LinkedIn. And then to the mental state piece, think about how you use Instagram or how you use TikTok. You might consume some business content on Instagram, but mostly it's for entertainment. And you're going on there not during work hours to sort of shut your brain off. I know for me, when I'm sitting down eating dinner, this is a habit I'm trying to break at this point, but I'll pull out my phone, go on Instagram Reels, and just kind of scroll and just rot my brain. It's kind of nice, but again, trying to break that habit. My point there is I'm not trying to be sold SaaS solutions while I'm scrolling Instagram Reels or especially if I'm scrolling TikTok. Personally, I deleted the app a while ago, but if I was using it, I'd use it much similarly. So if you want to reach your ICP in a state where they're ready to be sold to, LinkedIn is the way to go. Now, as far as posting cadence, 5 to 7 times per week on LinkedIn. No, it's not too much. Again, nobody knows who you are. You need to get in front of them more, and you also need to get more data points on what's working and what's not. And by the way, if you want a full in-depth playbook on how to launch a founder-led content presence, so after you watch this video, or even at this point now, you're like, hey, I get it, I want to start doing this. I put out a full masterclass on my YouTube channel that's about just over an hour, going through step-by-step how to launch a founder-led content presence on LinkedIn with real-life examples from our clients and other people that are crushing it on LinkedIn. So I'll link that up on the screen right now. Now, problem number 2 is that cold outbound is just getting way harder. I talk to a lot of founders and marketing leaders on a week-to-week basis. This past week, I spoke to probably 10 or 15, and they all say the same thing. In 2024, getting people to reply to cold outbound or outbound LinkedIn messages is a struggle. And I know my own LinkedIn inbox is a war zone. I ignore most of the outbound that I get. Here's a quick meme to just show you how you look in your prospects' LinkedIn DMs. If you have no social presence, there's no differentiation. There's no reason for someone to specifically reply to you. Now, this is unless it's from someone that I know. So if I get a message, or if your prospects get a message and they don't know who it's coming from, there's no recognition, there's no trust already built, they're probably not going to reply. It's really just a crapshoot and a numbers game. And at this point, those numbers are getting uglier and uglier. But if they know who you are and there's some familiarity there, they're going to be more likely to reply. And I'll get into the solution here in just a second. Now, the solution for problem number 2, like cold outbound, getting harder, I'm not going to sit here and say it's dead. There are alarmists that will use that hook on LinkedIn and other platforms to just get you to consume their content. Cold outbound's not dead. It still works. I have clients that see success with it. I've seen a lot of other companies have success with it as well. The problem, again, is just that it's getting harder. But the good thing is that content on LinkedIn makes your cold outbound feel like a warm intro. So when you're posting founder-led content and getting out there in front of your ICP, one, you'll just get more inbound leads. So you're going to become less reliant on cold outbound. So this is a nice place to be. But also, you're going to build familiarity with people. And then you can go reach out from your account as the founder, or even if your SDRs or your sales team reaches out on LinkedIn, they're going to recognize your company and be like, oh yeah, I follow so-and-so on LinkedIn. I've seen his stuff. It's good stuff. And they're going to be more likely to reply. And the how to get here is kind of similar to solution number 1. You just got to start posting. Again, 5 to 7 times per week, increase your cadence, get in front of your ICP more. It's like the mere exposure effect of you're just getting in front of them more, saying the same thing in different ways, and they're going to trust you. And as you layer in cold outbound, if you're not doing it yet and you start to do it at some point, or if you're doing it and it's not working well, you'll start to see it perform better. So over time, as you build affinity with your audience, you should see reply rates improve. You can also start to use social engagement as a signal for your outbound team. This could be a whole video in and of itself. But one of our clients right now does this thing where we're posting for them on LinkedIn, and then they'll go through their likes and engagement, so likes and comments. And if someone fits their ICP, their sales team will reach out. It's not perfect. Again, like any outbound, the conversion rate isn't 100%, but someone engaging, especially consistently with your social content, is a pretty good signal that they want to hear from you, and they're probably at least open to hearing about your product. And then also, you could use social engagement on your competitors' content as an outbound signal. That same client told me that their competitor has done the same thing with them. This can get a little bit shady, but it works well when done tastefully. I personally wouldn't just go shit talk your competitors in your prospects' DMs, but it can be a way to identify people to reach out to and get in touch with. And again, if you have an audience on LinkedIn, they're going to be more likely to reply. And just to give you an example here for myself, this is not in the lead generation category because I don't do any cold outbound right now for lead gen. We're all inbound. We have a wait list. Again, I don't really need that at this moment, but I am doing a good amount of cold outbound on the hiring front. And something I've noticed is that as I've picked up my outbound, just DMing people hey, do you know any content editors? Or hey, do you know any content writers? By the way, if you're a content editor watching this and you want to join an agency, hit me up. Same thing. If you're a content writer, we're constantly hiring for those two positions. But I was reaching out to people to source candidates for these positions. And my hypothesis is that because I have a LinkedIn audience of about 28,000 people and I post daily and they can see I'm a real person, I have video content on my page, there's that inherent trust to build. Like even if they haven't seen me before, they're going to be more likely to consider replying and helping out. It's a little bit different because I'm not asking for a sale, but it does tend to work pretty well. And also, as you start to get more and more mutual connections with people that are in your ICP, that will also build trust and credibility to get them to reply more. So the more you build your audience on LinkedIn and your network, the better your cold outbound is going to work. And an example here would be like, say, Adam Robinson, which is a SaaS founder with like 80,000 plus followers, were to DM you. I'm pretty sure if you were in like the SaaS go-to-market space, you'd recognize him and you'd at least consider replying. Now, problem number 3, and this is a big one, you have no time to create content. So founders are busy raising, recruiting, firefighting. Trust me, I know, I get it. As your company gains traction, your calendar fills up fast. And I never understood this when I was an in-house marketer. So like back when I was at Triple Whale or even before then, I was like, why don't founders just like post more content? Like it's not that hard. What I didn't realize was at that point, I had my entire day to just sit down and record content and write content and just only be content focused. That's not the reality when you're launching and running a company. And I understand now that I'm running my own company with Compound that a lot of founders do take content seriously. They understand why it matters, but their calendar is just filled to the brim with more urgent tasks. So if you're a founder watching this and you're like, hey, like I understand content is important, but I just straight up don't have time because I'm not going to sit here and you should not be writing LinkedIn posts when you should be responding to customer success things, or maybe not customer success tickets, but if there's like an urgent fire you got to put out or just another task in the business that only you can do that is going to impact the growth of the business, focus on that, not content. That said, that doesn't mean that you should let content slide. And that gets me into solution number 3, which is bringing in content support. So it's like, okay, you have 0 time to produce content, but you know it's important. What do you do at this point? There's a few different alternatives here, depending on where you're at in your company's life cycle. Let me take a sip of my cold brew real quick. By the way, if you want to produce better LinkedIn content, cold brew is scientifically proven to help you do that. I just made that up, but trust me. But there's two scenarios here. One is if you're bootstrapped or pre-seed, aka you have no budget to hire for this. You're like, okay, great point, Tommy, but I have 0 budget to bring someone in for content support. And that's okay. What I would recommend here is commit 30 to 60 minutes per day to writing and or filming content. You will get better as you get more reps in, of course. You'll also understand what to hire for when it does come time to build out a content team in-house, or if you're working with an agency partner or a freelancer or however you choose to bring in support. Those early days of just ripping your own content will help you out a ton. So that necessity to start to produce your own content is actually a blessing in disguise, as are a lot of things like that as a bootstrap founder or a very early stage founder. We actually just onboarded a client here at Compound who fits this exact criteria. He was posting content consistently on LinkedIn, and then they just went through a fundraise. And during that time, if you're a founder, you know, like fundraising is another full-time job on top of running your company. So he just had 0 time to produce his content. But because he had that experience with writing his own content, he already is clear on his tone of voice and the styles of content that perform well for him. We can slot in very nicely and support there. Also, another note here is if you're a founder and you just like writing your own stuff, I think that's totally fine. I know I run an agency that helps support content production, but a lot of our best clients are clients who come in and stick with us for about 6 to 9 months, maybe 12. And then they're crushing it, they're stoked, and they really enjoy creating content. Then they go off and just continue writing their own stuff. So citing Adam Robinson again, I don't want to name drop too much here, but like, he was an early client of Compound, and we got him from 0 to 25K on LinkedIn. And then he realized like, hey, I actually really enjoy just sitting down and creating this content myself. So I'm just going to take this and run with it. And now he's at 80K and he's continuing to crush it. And that's sort of an ideal scenario for us. So if you're thinking like, hey, I don't know if I want to have someone write my content or produce my content forever, or I just want to write my own stuff from the start and let it rip. That's totally fine. And honestly, probably like the perfect ideal is to have a founder that's just writing their own stuff with some support on the side. Now, if you've raised your seed round or Series A, or you're an even more mature company, I would recommend hiring for support on content creation if you're finding that like you just don't have the time, or if you want to increase the output of your current content. And so for most early stage companies, working with an external partner that has category specific experience works well here. As companies mature, it can make more sense to bring content in-house. So there's a whole list of pros and cons for the different ways that you could hire for content support. So you could go with a freelancer, you could go with an agency, you could go with an in-house hire. Early stage, so seed stage, Series A, if you're running sort of a 90-day experiment or a 6-month experiment with founder-led content, and you're like, hey, I don't know if I want to hire for this full-time and commit the hiring resources, getting someone in. What if it doesn't work out and then I have to lay this person off or figure out what to do with them? It can be a lot more effective to partner with someone, whether it be a freelancer, you can find a lot of great freelancers out there, or an agency like Compound, to come in for a sprint to test like, hey, is this actually going to work for a company? And then as you continue to mature and get more resources, you can consider bringing it in-house. But a quick PSA for founders here: if you do hire, still stay involved in the content creation. The best clients we have at Compound are constantly giving us productive feedback and are invested in the creative direction of their content. You could take the approach of like, hey, I don't like content at all. I don't want to touch this. I know it matters at this point and it's kind of a necessity, but I just don't want to touch it. Just do your thing. That can work. And we have clients that are like that. And depending on the company and the product and the niche, it can work okay. But the best clients we have at Compound are responsive with feedback. They're proactively saying like, hey, what if we do a post on this topic? Or I saw this thing. What if we do this? Of course, we're feeding them ideas too, but that collaborative nature makes something like this a lot more effective. Again, whether you're working with an in-house hire or an agency or an external partner, being collaborative is very important. But you should be able to go from, say, spending 20 hours a week or 10 hours a week on your own content, which is, again, like a part-time job that you may not have time for at this stage in your company, to spending about 1 to 2 hours per week on your content max, between approvals and any content calls or whatever your arrangement looks like. And again, like I said, when we work with founders at Compound, they'll usually work with us for about 9 months before deciding to either in-house or just go back to writing their own stuff because their comfort level has increased. A good way to think about it is like a personal trainer. So when some people work with a personal trainer, they will just pick a personal trainer and work with them for years or like the rest of their life. And that relationship is longstanding. And they're like, hey, I could do this on my own, but honestly, I like having someone in my corner to support me on this and to keep me accountable and to do all this stuff. Maybe even like a personal chef to meal prep or whatever, depending on where you're at as a founder. But my point is, some people just sign up for a personal trainer, stick with them forever. Some people will sign up with a personal trainer for 6 months or a year or 2 years to help get them going in fitness and to teach them the fundamentals and to help get them consistent. But once they have that consistency and that understanding of how to train and how to eat, how to do these things, they're pretty comfortable taking the training wheels off and being like, hey, I'm going to go do this on my own now. I appreciate your help, but like, I'm good. And any good personal trainer will tell you that is a massive win. So it comes down to personal preference and kind of where you're at as a founder and your own desire to create content. But that's how I think about this. Now, moving on to problem number 4, and I see this all the time, especially in SaaS and B2B marketing, is your content marketing just isn't differentiated. A significant percentage of the founders I speak to are posting on LinkedIn already, but they aren't getting any traction. So you're posting, even if you're posting 5-7 times a week, but you're just not gaining traction. The reason why is you haven't answered this one simple question. Why should someone in my ICP follow me on LinkedIn? So what is the specific reason outside of, hey, I have this really cool product, which again, product content is fantastic and you should do it, but it shouldn't be the only thing you're doing. And especially in the early stages, it's not going to be the main reason someone's following you. Like, you're not Notion. I hate to break it to you. You can't just post product gifts and hope for the best. That should be a part of what you do, but not all of it. And if you can't answer this specifically, your content won't perform well, your audience won't grow, your pipeline won't fill. So that's why you need to solve this. Again, if your content isn't differentiated, it doesn't matter how much you post. You're just going to be in the slog of just like posting into the void, and that's just never fun. So the solution here is to pick a differentiator. Get clear on why someone in your ICP should follow you. And just to give you a quick primer on the 5 differentiators, this could be a whole different video in and of itself. I have a article actually that I'll link below in the description that I wrote for my newsletter that goes through each of these 5 in a lot more depth. But just to give you a quick primer, the first differentiator is a common enemy. Nothing rallies a group like a common enemy, from politics to marketing. Having a focal point for your audience to latch onto is a proven way to rally support for your movement. So whether you're a startup going after a specific company that's an incumbent, or if you're attacking a pain point or ideology. So if I were to sit here and say like cold email is dead, you should do LinkedIn content instead, or like founder-led content instead, that could be an approach. Again, I personally wouldn't do that because I don't think that's 100% true, but some version of that where you're attacking some idea or pain point or the way things have always been done can be a good way to stand out on social. Second here is feature launches or shipping velocity. Tech startups can use feature launches to constantly inject themselves into the conversation. So if you're launching new stuff on a weekly or bi-weekly or even monthly basis, this can be a really easy way to get yourself into the conversation. Now, feature launches can't be like the main thing all the time. From what I've seen, you need to have some other reason for people to follow you, unless your product is just that good, which if it is, fantastic. But feature launches can be a way to stand out, especially if you're launching a lot of stuff really quickly. I know when we were at Triple Whale, we were launching new features, new products pretty much every week, and it kept us in the conversation. Another company that does this pretty well is Beehive. They have launches pretty much weekly, and they'll use social as a way to distribute them. And then number 3 here is IRL activation. So in real life activations. Events are one of those more traditional marketing motions that are actually surprisingly good for social content harvesting. So the simplest way you could do this is if you're hosting a private dinner or you're at a conference and doing one of those like side events that's adjacent to the main conference, or even at the main conference. Get pictures with people, get videos with people, get media and material that you can post in your content. One common content type, just some free game here if you're a founder, keep track of the customer and prospect conversations that you have at these events. So if you talk to a customer and they share a very specific pain point or anecdote, that can turn into a great LinkedIn post. So those IRL activations can give you plenty of media like photos and video to use. And you can also tag a lot of folks, which will help increase your distribution. But it can also provide you with fodder for LinkedIn posts and like written copy. And again, I'm going to take a sip of my cold brew here. Also, best way to drink it is black. If you disagree, you're wrong. But let me know in the comments what you think. Now, number 4, differentiator number 4 is founder pedigree. And the truth is that it's far easier to build a personal brand or do founder-led content or whatever version of the term you want to call it when you've already done dope stuff than it is to try and build one from scratch. So this one is sort of if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. But this is why oftentimes a lot of the best founder-led content motions come from people who either are their ICP or were at some point. So again, using Adam as an example, now with his new company, RB2B, he's selling this SaaS go-to-market folks. He scaled the SaaS to $20 million in ARR. He has a lot of credibility with those people. Another example would be this guy, Austin Hughes. We've helped support him on content for his company, Unify. And he used to work at Ramp. And because he worked at Ramp in the like growth product department, he has a lot of credibility with the people that he's trying to reach for his current product. It also helped that product was built internally at Ramp before being spun out. But my point here is that founder pedigree and having that credibility with your audience is really important. So again, just to use another example with myself, I'm sitting here talking to you about founder-led social and content strategy because I have a lot of experience in content strategy. I've posted 10,000 plus content assets over the years. That's a conservative estimate. Again, we've helped 30 plus SaaS founders launch this stuff on LinkedIn. Prior to that, I was head of social at Triple Whale. Prior to that, I ran social media at D2C Newsletter. There's just a laundry list of accomplishments and experience in this specific field. So I feel comfortable sharing my expertise on it. Whereas, again, the example I've used before is like if I were to talk to you about building an agency, sure, I've learned a lot over the past 14 months, and I'm a lot better off now than I was when I first started, but I still don't know shit when it comes to building an agency. I'm still very much figuring it out. So if I was going to sit here and tell you, here's how I scaled my agency from 0 to X in top line revenue, that'd just be kind of cheesy. I don't know if cheesy is the best way to describe it, but it just wouldn't hit the same because I don't have that credibility with that audience. So make sure that when you're launching this, either you are your own ICP, you were your own ICP at some point, or if you're not either of those two, just be okay with the fact that it's going to take a bit longer. So it might not take 90 days. It might take 6 months for you to build up some real credibility with that audience. And you need to approach it with that intent. Now, that could be a whole different video. But to round out the differentiators here, number 5 is pretty much zig when they zag. So one simple way to stand out is just to do whatever your competitor isn't. So if your competitor is leaning heavily into humor and memes, don't necessarily try to play that same game. Maybe you go super educational. Or if they're like super sterile and just posting a bunch of white papers, then inject more personality into your social presence, into your tone of voice as a founder. There are a lot of different ways to do this. If they're going super text heavy, maybe you lean into video more. Or if they're going super heavy on video, maybe you lean into text more. There's just a lot of different variations of this. I wouldn't like go the exact opposite or base your entire strategy off of what your competitors are doing, but look at different ways that you can do things that they aren't. Now, problem number 5, and this is a big one when it comes to founder-led content, you're chasing the wrong metrics. Another significant segment of the founders that I speak to in sales calls and customers have built an audience already, but it's just not converting. It's like, okay, cool, I have 10,000 followers or I have 20,000 followers, but I'm not getting any inbound from it or not getting any quality inbound. It's like people that want to buy a $17 PDF but don't want to sign up for a pretty high ACV SaaS product. This happens a lot because these founders are so focused on vanity metrics like follower count, impressions, that they lost sight of the real target, which is customers. And I see this happen a lot. Excuse me. I see this happen a lot when founders sign up with generic ghostwriting agencies with no experience in the SaaS space. So there's a lot of these companies that will promise you like, hey, $10,000 in X amount of days, or they use a lot of like impressions screenshots on LinkedIn or on Twitter to try and convince you like, hey, this stuff works. A lot of times they like buy retweets and it's just kind of not great. And you end up with a lot of followers, and maybe those followers are engaged and they like your stuff, but they're not the right people that are going to sign up, again, for a high ACV SaaS product. So if you're gunning for fame, optimize for the shallow vanity metrics. If your goal is an engaged audience, there's a little typo. It's not a banger if there's no typo. Can't even use the right your. But if your goal is an engaged audience who wants to buy from you and commit a large percentage of their budget to your product, you want to optimize for affinity and trust. So a simple mantra to remember here, I got this from Adam Ryan, the CEO at Workweek. Attention does not equal intention. And you want to build an audience with intention to buy. So again, if you want to chase fame and chase the vanity metrics, that's a totally different game. That's not a game I'm interested in playing. That seems very stressful, and I don't really want to be very public facing. I know a lot of founders feel the same, but I want to be very known well with a specific subset of my audience. So just to get into the solution here, and real quick on that note, another mantra here that I like a lot that I got from Adam Robinson, and I think he got it from someone else, is you want to be known well, not well known. So well known is having that very broad generalized audience where a lot of people know you, but not very deeply. Known well is having a decent sized audience. You need distribution. You need people to know who you are, but those people are very tight knit and they trust you and they know you well and they know your opinions and they're following you for a very specific thing. So the solution to this at a tactical level is to build what I call a content funnel. So here's a quick graphic, and I'll get into this in a second. But again, if you're not careful, chasing vanity metrics will lead you right into the dead end. An audience full of people that will never buy your stuff. Again, you won't be able to sell them a $17 PDF. I'm sure you've heard that horror story. I forget the influencer's name, but there was this influencer on Instagram that had like millions of followers, and she could barely sell like 3 $30 t-shirts, if that. Again, different industry, but I think the example holds up. So you want to be intentional with your audience growth. And every founder who wants to win on social media needs to craft a content funnel. And there are 3 layers here. So there's top of funnel content, and top of funnel content is meant to garner attention. The goal of this content is to generate more impressions. You are casting a bit of a wider net. So when I talk about these other like chasing vanity metrics and these other approaches that might not work as well, they over-index on this content. But you shouldn't ditch it because there's value in it, and there's value in having the algorithm sort of treat you well and being in favor with the algorithms. I'm sure that's not like scientifically correct, like the correct way to say it, but essentially like it just helps you get more visibility and engagement on platform. Like there was this one angle that I would use around like why social media managers shouldn't be tasked with video editing, copywriting, graphic design, and all these different tasks. And every time I'd post that piece of content to LinkedIn, like literally verbatim, it would crush like 1,000+ likes. Now that was a different era of LinkedIn, and it didn't really lead to a bunch of like business results, but it did help like jumpstart growth and performance on my account. So there is value in top of funnel content. For founder-led content, that tends to be like personal stories and anecdotes, like founder stories, the origin story of your company, stuff like that. Again, very helpful. And if you do this right, you can tie it into business related stuff or product related stuff. I'll dive into that in a bit more depth in another video. You could also read the full 3-part guide that I wrote on this exact topic. I'll link it down below. I walk through a few examples there. But middle of funnel content is the second thing here. And this is more targeted to your ICP. So for example, if you're if you're selling an email service provider or email software for D2C brands, you might post more content around like email marketing for e-commerce brands and D2C brands and thought leadership around that, sharing updates on like deliverability updates and stuff like that is more targeted to your ICP than say a general like founder story would be, or a general like business advice story would be. So middle of funnel content is a bit more targeted, but it'll still let you build an audience. So most of your content will be made up of middle of funnel content. If I look at the split, like 10-ish% is top of funnel, about 60 to 70% is middle of funnel, and then bottom of funnel is, again, pretty straightforward. Your product related stuff, feature updates, case studies. This will make up the last 10 to 20%. So again, you don't want to over index in this direction either, because a lot of founders will do that and then struggle to grow an audience at all, because the total addressable audience for bottom of funnel content tends to be smaller. The exception to this would be something like a fundraising announcement, where even though it's directly product related, they always tend to crush. Another thing here would be like monthly updates, like building in public style of posts, which are obviously product related, but they tend to do pretty well performance wise. Same thing with case studies, actually. Case studies do quite well. But my point here, before I get too far off track, is you want to have a good balance of each of these types of content. It's not going to work necessarily like a funnel. So, I mean, even this graphic is maybe a little bit off in terms of the way it represents it, but you're not going to go directly from like an audience member isn't going to go directly from top of funnel to middle of funnel to bottom of funnel content in like one fell swoop in one very defined sequence. But my point is you want to put out content in each category to reach people at different points in the funnel and just to get people in. And then eventually they'll end up signing up for your product or starting a sales conversation with you or moving to an owned audience like a newsletter or even like a YouTube channel. If you're watching this on my YouTube channel, it's a good example. So the TLDR here, again, if you're new around here, also hit subscribe. I post videos like this and deep dives on how to grow your SaaS company with content specifically on LinkedIn every single week. So if you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. If you're watching on Twitter or LinkedIn, probably LinkedIn, because again, actually not on LinkedIn because the time limit for this video is way too long. But if you're watching on social, follow wherever you are. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. But just to recap here, the 5 problems that keep SaaS companies from getting more leads are: nobody knows who you are. Cold outbound is getting harder. It's not dead, but it's harder. Founders just don't have time to create content. Again, very relatable for me at this point. Number 4, your content marketing isn't differentiated. You're not giving someone a reason to follow you. And 5, you're chasing the wrong metrics. So these are the compound core 5. If you solve these and give it 90 days, I'd be very shocked if you didn't start getting more inbound from your LinkedIn content. And so how do you solve them? Again, start posting to LinkedIn specifically 5 to 7 times per week. You're probably not posting enough. 1 time per week isn't enough. 1 time per month definitely isn't enough. 5 to 7 times per week, you're not posting too much, I promise. Commit to founder-led content for 90 days and you'll start to see reply rates increase. So again, like we talked about, your cold outbound will get more effective and you'll decrease your reliance on cold outbound because you're getting more inbound leads. If you're on a budget, write your own content. That's totally fine. Again, if you want to keep writing your own content, be my guest. I think that's fantastic. But when you get to a point where you're fundraising or you have a team and a lot of meetings and you don't have the time to create your own content, consider bringing in support. If you're earlier stage, I'd probably go external like a freelancer or an agency if you want to work with Compound. Our waitlist is below. As you mature, you can consider in-housing it, or if you want to just keep working with that partner, if they're great, fantastic. That's really personal preference, and there's a lot of pros and cons to each. But you want to have some sort of support on content production. Number 4, for the solutions, differentiated content prevents you from blending in and becoming a commodity. So again, think about why someone should follow you. And for solution number 5, chase the right metrics. So I kind of a duplicate here, but the solution for you're chasing the raw metrics, chase the right metrics. Chase customers, not clout. Follower count and impressions are a good leading indicator and they should be increasing, absolutely, but don't base your entire strategy on those. You want to make sure you're getting the right people in your ecosystem and have the right mindset when it comes to social content, and you'll go a long way. So these are the 5 problems. This is how you solve them. If you do this for 90 days, you'll be happy with where you're at on LinkedIn. Now, if you want to see my full playbook for founder-led content, got good news for you. I dropped the full thing here on YouTube. It's ungated. It's a 62-minute masterclass on how to launch this entire content strategy and fix the 5 problems that we just talked about. So it goes over how to position your account and give someone a reason to follow you with very specific examples, how to set up your LinkedIn profile the right way, what to post daily with a sample content calendar that'll get you through those first 90 days, and a lot more. Again, it's like a full hour masterclass. So I'll drop it up on the screen right now. Check that out. Also, if you're a real one, and only if you're a real one, share this with a SaaS founder that you know, but only if this was helpful. Again, my goal is to create content so helpful that people want to share it. So if that does fit in this category, feel free to send this to a SaaS founder you know, and I will see you in the next video.